Um, Thank you so much for speaking with me. I'm very excited to talk about Piggy.
Thank you.
I had wanted to see it at Sundance last year and I wasn't able to. I was able to watch the screener and I'm incredibly impressed with not only the performances, but the story. Um, the bullying is the center of it. How did you exactly encapsulate that outside feeling and the anger that Sarah felt being harassed by her former friend and then the other bully girls?
Well, for me, it was important to put the audience in her place. I've been bullied, and I wanted the, you always this thing that when you're a victim of something, it's like you cannot you are only a victim. You cannot have any other feelings, and you have to be this being of light, which is perfect and is defined by its victimhood. For me, I want to see, well, she's a human being, and she's gonna have anger issues, and she's gonna have morality issues, and I wanted to it try to express this complexity of being her, because otherwise you're just putting her in a different way. You're just putting her in a cage, you know? Yeah.
I love the build, the slow build that built layer and layer as it permeated throughout this small town. Are you from a smaller city as well? Is that how you decided to place it in a small town, which had a almost claustrophobic feel to it, where she was
I'm,
trapped?
I'm not from a small town. I spent my summers in a small town since I was a kid, but I live in a building with all my family. And when I mean all my family, I mean all my family, which means that you live in the smallest town there is. Yeah, and I know about claustrophobic.
Now, I am a big fan of murder documentaries. This
Mhm.
felt very different than the murder documentaries that I saw. Did you sort of get inspired by a particular crime to make it a more of a criminal coming of age? Because Sarah was also not only dealing with being the plumper girl amongst her friends, but also her sexual awakening as a young woman
Mhm.
and her pushback with her parents who still saw her as a little girl.
Yeah, I did. I did a lot of research. I read it. One of the things that I thought when I was preparing this movie is like, you have to choose your movies correctly because you're gonna have to read a lot of stuff. And sometimes I went to bed like, oh my God, really? Oof. And I read a lot of crime novels. I read a lot of psychological studies. I've seen every single Netflix, HBO documentary about serial killers, and I even went to a master's by the police about serial killers and abuse and trauma. Yeah, like 3 weeks masters about on that, and I also did a lot of research about. Even though I've experienced bullying myself and I've seen it around me, I went to. I worked with my DP's husband, who's specialized in bullying and dealing with bullying cases in high school. So yeah, I did a lot of study, and for me, and then I found out something that it was pretty particular, that we have this idea of the serial killer that is very organized. There's some serial killers that are disorganized, and we also talk about this lack of empathy, which is there are very different levels of sociopathy in the world, and we know more people than we think that have traits of sociopathy in our everyday life.
Yes, there's darkness amongst closed doors often. Now, I know this was originally a short film. How did you take the story and make it? I think the movie was about an hour and a half because it felt very full. There were no empty filler moments. You did such a wonderful job taking it into a full length story, but how difficult was that for you?
um when I approached the short film was like very schematical. You don't know anything about the characters. They almost this girl who's in the pool, and the mean girls who are all dressed the same. They almost look the same. They're almost like the three witches of Macbeth. But in the film, I wanted layers and more layers. And what I did, even though I come from a background of television where everything is very like structured, like the first act, the second act, the third act, what I did is that I forgot about this and I started writing just following her. I thought, what would she do? And I just started writing. And I said, oh, she wouldn't do that. Oh, look how she did that, but she would react this way to this. So really tried to make Sarah talk to me and tell me what she would do in a sense, and just forget about norms about story writing.
I really liked the relationship between the murderer and Sarah as she sort of pushed past the expectations that I was seeing, because the end was such a twist surprise that I do not want to give away. I want everyone to see this film and experience in theater if possible. How did you sort of decide this is the direction I'm going to go in, as opposed to more of a traditional girl suffering, being bullied, and she becomes a stronger person?
Yeah, for me, it all went for the sense that I wanted to be, it felt like a real teenager. No movie teenager. And also because for me, this movie was also, I wrote it as a thriller and as a horror thriller, but mainly as a coming of age story. So, there was also this fascinations we have with the bad guys, the cool bad guy. But here, the bad guy is truly bad. And for me, there's this thing that one of the main characters in the movie is the audience, and I wanted the audience to resemble the way, like when we're teens, sometimes this guy notices you, and your friends try to push you to him just because he's noticed you, like, oh, but he likes you, and I wanted the audience to do that with Sarah, and then pause and say, but well, maybe he's not good for her.
It was a wonderful cat and mouse feel to it, where it went from her following him to him following her. What was your inspiration as a director, as far as some of films that you saw that you thought, I sort of like the way this looked, I like this pacing, I'm going to incorporate that into my film, Piggy?
Well, there's many things that I try not to watch movies when I'm making them, just before that. And yeah, for me, some inspirations was Who Can Kill a Child, because I like the summer, the heat, and the horror in plain daylight. It's an amazing movie. But in regards to the relationship between the two of them, and the desire, and the way the bodies and the desire is shot, is Claire Denis Travel Every Day. And also Eden Lake, of this kind of teenagers being very scary but very real, and on Canoe du Lac, Stranger by the Lake, for the sound design, and also because this kind of sexual the sexual the
Tension.
sexuality of death, in a way, I don't know. And I don't know, many of course Texas Chainsaw Massacre was an inspiration, because I think it's such an amazing movie, and it's so terrifying because it felt so real. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the fact that it was dubbed. I mean, that it had English subtitles, but
Yeah.
even without the English subtitles, you directed it so well that I could feel and sort of anticipate what she was saying. How did you sort of arrive at being able to say to yourself, I want this so visual that you almost don't need to hear or read what they're saying?
Yeah, for us, for me, it was very important that we had the screenplay, and then we have the visual screenplay. That the visual screenplay would tell her story arc just with images and with colors and with her costume design and with the sound. So we have two different screenplays, the one with the test and the one just for the crew, where everything, and remember that maybe the camera department would say, what if we move the camera? I said, no, in this part of the story we can't move the camera. Stuff like that, and yeah, for me it was important. I would talk with my DP that we will have to be able, that if the movie, you saw the movie without any words, you still could follow her journey. Yeah.
It was a delightful film. It had me on the edge of my seat. I am so happy to speak to you and learn more about your process. Thank you so much for speaking with me about Piggy.
Thank you so much. It was lovely.